It has been way too long since we broke down some Dynasty fantasy football teams on this channel. So today we are breaking down 6 of your guys' fantasy football teams in Dynasty Decisions. This is episode 124 of the series that we've been doing for a couple of years now. For those of you guys that are new to this channel, basically we just break down teams. We break down their decisions that they have to make, rebuilding decisions, contending decisions, trade questions, all that kind of stuff. You want to be a part of these episodes in the future. Promo code FSE users over on flockfantasy.com get to skip the line, whether you're a monthly, an annual, doesn't really matter. But annual subscribers, of course, get plenty of other benefits, including the free team review, which is basically a Dynasty Decisions episode that we send right to you. So without further ado, Danny, let's get into the first team. Alrighty, so we are into the first team here, coming to us from MysteryMeat. You guys can see the team on the screen there, 12-team, 4-point per passing touchdown, 1.5 tight end premium, super flex league. Does have Patrick Mahomes, Caleb Williams, and Derek Carr as the quarterbacks, Brian Robinson, Travis Etienne, Isaac Guerrero, Jalen Warren, a couple of kind of lower-end guys, Tajay Spears at running back, wide receivers pretty stocked up with CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek, Devontae Smith, Jalen McMillan, Zay Flowers, Hollywood Brown, so on and so forth there. And then George Kittle is the main tight end with Isaiah Likely as kind of like the young, productive guy. And then it looks like he does not have his first-round pick in this year's class, but he does have the 201, so an early second-round pick. And then it looks like he's got an extra couple picks in the future there and missing a few picks here and there. It doesn't look like he has his own second, for example, in 2026. But relatively strongly built team here. You got what is this, a start 10? So you want to be a little bit stronger depth-wise. I think at running back and wide receiver, he's definitely accomplishing that. A little weak at QB3 with Derek Carr as his main option there. He does mention here that he lost. What's up?
I was just going to say, I do like how the quarterback room is constructed because, you got your main two guys. And, I don't like completely over-investing in a third quarterback. And while Derek Carr, maybe you want somebody a little bit better than that. What even is a little bit better? Like the quarterback 22 to 25 range? I don't necessarily think that's a terrible thing.
Yeah, for sure. He said he lost in the first round last season and wanted to start to move his team in a different direction with some of the players. So I guess what he's saying is, I think I'm getting old. I don't know if I can compete anymore. I'm maybe trying to sell off some spare parts. He said, what can I continue to do to shape this team in a league where teams do not value over players like Tyreek Hill? If they're not on their team, of course. And this is really unfortunate for you too, that Tyreek lost value this year. Had he been coming off of a 22 point per game season, he would be much easier to sell than he currently is. So unfortunately for you, you might be kind of stuck with him until he produces on the field.
Yeah. And I will say, so you mentioned you wanted to move your team in a different direction because you lost in the first round. I will say, if you knew the market on guys like Tyreek, older players, wasn't really there in your league, we'll talk about the trades in a second, but I do think you were a little bit premature on one of them. So we'll talk about that in a second, of course. Let's just actually get right into it. The first one, Kyle Pitts, Travis Etienne, and 401 Guerrero. I think at this point, Kyle Pitts obviously lost a ton of value. Etienne lost value in his own right. Guerrero, though, looked pretty strong. Obviously, we know McCaffrey is dealing with his injury issues now. I think this is a very fine deal. This is the trade I was alluding to. If you knew the overall market in your league wasn't there for older players like Tyreek, which would inhibit your ability to actually try to tear it down, I think you prematurely rushed it, because the biggest weakness I see with this team from a contending lens right now is the lack of a true RB1 on this team. And making this move, again, I think Caleb Williams, obviously with the Ben Johnson hire, is a first-round startup pick. But I do think you kind of depleted your contending window. While you did lose in the first round this past year, if we're projecting going into this upcoming year with Patrick Mahomes, with Kyler Murray, with Breece Hall, Brian Robinson, Travis Etienne, and running backs, obviously those wide receivers that you have, along with DJ Moore added to that, I think you probably could have pushed one more year.
Yeah, I don't disagree here. I feel like, unfortunately for you, a guy like Breece Hall didn't produce at the level that me and Danny, for example, thought he was going to. Tyreek Hill didn't produce at the level that we thought he was going to. You kind of just ran cold on a lot of things, and you, in my opinion, prematurely sold an asset who still I would consider a top 4 dynasty running back, who I think is actually a buy in most cases for a lot of people looking for stud RB1 type of production right now. Like, I break down this trade like this. To me, I would rather have Kyler Murray than Caleb Williams right now, because I've seen enough hesitancy on what Caleb Williams is as an NFL quarterback to the point that I think you have to drop him down just a little bit. Obviously, having Ben Johnson in town really, really helps, and that really improves his value. But for me, I'm a little bit worried that Caleb Williams' ceiling is Kyler Murray. You know what I mean?
No, I actually do disagree quite quite much on that, because I do think Caleb Williams, from a passing lens, I think with the weapons that he has there, with the scheme there, with Ben Johnson, potential improvements on the offensive line, either that or potentially even adding a back in his backfield like Ashton Genty, who, as we know, is adept in the passing game. Regardless, like, I think there's going to be a lot more balance in Chicago, and there's going to be a lot more stability with Ben Johnson. Caleb Williams is not my problem with the deal. My problem is that if you know that it's a contending type of lens that your team is on, and it's going to be really hard to tear it down, why did you make the move? Because if you can't sell Tyreek freely, if you can't sell like a George Kittle freely, if you can't sell Brian Robinson, Travis Etienne freely, given the market in your league, it just feels premature. So in terms of the Caleb Williams evaluation, I'm actually a lot higher on him than you, because I do think with the Ben Johnson hire, you can make the case that he's a back-end first-round starter pick at this point.
Yeah, to me, like, again, we don't have to make this all about Caleb Williams' value right now, because we haven't really talked about some of the new coaching hires, but
we'll do that
from
soon,
my vantage point, Caleb Williams had a very down rookie season relative to what we were expecting. And if he had run-of-the-mill, nobody cares offensive coordinator hire, I think the market would value him as like a third-round startup pick. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's where his value would be in the eyes of most dynasty players. So the fact that he got Ben Johnson is great, and it makes you and other people, and including myself, more optimistic on his future. But a spade is a spade. He had a bad rookie season, so it has to factor into his value somehow. And just in the minds of other dynasty players, I believe some people will factor it in more than apparently you are factoring it in, which is fine. It's okay to be above market on players, obviously. I just think that Caleb Williams being a back-end first-round startup pick in your eyes is a hot take for most people. I don't think most people would view him that way.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you're very pro Caleb Williams, I can see him going there. I'd probably have him more so valued in the early to mid-second round. But regardless, for me, I do think I would rather have Caleb Williams than Kyler Murray. But is the difference giving up Breece Hall, DJ Moore, et cetera there? Not necessarily, especially like we said, in the context of your league, knowing it'd be hard to trade your older assets. I do think you prematurely tried to cave it in. Again, obviously this is very recoupable. You still have a strong team overall, but you're kind of stuck in limbo now where you don't have your first round pick in 2025, but you also don't have the horsepower at running back trading away Breece Hall to truly be a top-end contender. So unless you hit at the 201, maybe you draft, I don't know, fucking the Caleb Johnson's going to be gone. Amari Hampton's going to be gone.
You get the next Bucky Irving at 201, basically.
Trevion Henderson maybe there, and you take him, and he's a third-round pick to the Cowboys, and he has a big year.
Yeah, like the position you never want to be in Dynasty is the point that you have to hit on your rookie picks to compete. Yeah. And that's kind of the position you're in right now. And if you're unable to sell Tyreek, you're unable to sell ETN, and you're unable to sell Brian Robinson, some of these guys, which unfortunately all of them kind of lost value too. Yeah. It's like you're selling low on them in addition to your league apparently not liking contending assets and older players. You are kind of stuck with these guys, in my opinion, until you get closer to the season. We get some redraft projections from these guys. Maybe Tyreek Hill's, I'm leaving the Dolphins situation kind of subsides. He says, I was injured all last year, and he's back to being a mid-second round redraft pick, and then you could sell him for high value to a contending team.
Yeah, and again, like, you do have paths to potential. Like, if let's just say Tajay Spears takes over for Tony Pollard next year, or Jalen Warren takes over because they don't re-sign Najee Harris. Like, there's paths for me to actually like see you getting running back points, but without having a guy like Breece Hall to really depend on, you kind of have to. I don't want to say makeshift your path, but you have to really galaxy brain it.
Yeah, you're basically at a point right now where if anybody offers you stuff for contending assets, I would take it and try and tear this thing down, because the worst thing you can do right now is convince yourself that you are a true contender and start selling picks and stuff like that, because there's a good chance you're not. I don't know what the other contenders in your league looks like, but I'd imagine it probably is better than the team that you've currently constructed here. So I would say you're better off erring on the side
of
selling.
Your path, keep continuing on it.
Yeah, you're better off erring on the side of selling contending assets more so than buying contending assets. And again, if nobody's going to give you what you want to get for Tyreek Hill, whatever you value him at, or feel like you need to, get him off of your team, then don't sell him yet. Tyreek Hill's probably not going anywhere. Like, you're probably going to be fine waiting until August or even early September, October, when he's actually on the field producing, to sell him if that's what you need to do.
Yeah, for sure. But overall, again, there are some moves to make, but in terms of your nucleus, obviously you have really high-end assets like Mahomes, like Caleb, like CeeDee Lamb on this team. It's just a matter of figuring out your direction, which, judging from the Caleb Williams deal, you already basically chose.
Yeah, and again, I kind of agree with Danny. Is that, like, it was like, okay, I'm tearing it down. It's a teardown trade. It's like, well, you maybe didn't have to. if we look at what the trade looks like. And also too, like, I think there was a smarter, more productive way to tear it down. Like if you were going to sell Brees 1-for-1 for a couple picks or something like that, that would have made more sense than what you kind of did here. But anyways, let's move to the next team here from Think Fast, Run Fast here. We got a 10 team start 10 super flex format, 4 point per passing touchdown, half tight end premium. Josh Allen, Drake May, and Russell Wilson. I mean, you got two absolute studs at QB 1 and 2, but Russell Wilson, not a great QB 3 to have. Saquon, Isaiah Pacheco, Ramondre, Tyrone Tracy, Dowdle, Algier, Charbonnet, pretty well-built running back core. Then you have obviously Jefferson, Lamb, Collins, and McConkey are all top 10 dynasty receivers for me. So those guys are all awesome. Then Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, also great depth there. And then Bowers and Ferguson's is very elite tight end core that you have on your hands. 101 to add to this team as well. You're going to be adding Genty to this team, 108, 208, and then you're missing, by the looks of it, your third round pick in 2026. But he said he really thought he had the chip this year, but he got knocked out in the semifinals. He said he feels like he has too much depth, especially in a 10-team league here. What moves can I make to tier up? Maybe from May to somebody, or DJ and Devontae Smith to someone? Do I keep the 108 or move it to upgrade somewhere? Basically, he's kind of asking, should I make a lot of consolidation moves in a start 10-team league here?
Yeah, and I think that's a fine path. The first two names that I'm looking at to be able to do that, DJ Moore's a big gainer now with Ben Johnson. Maybe he's getting a lot of buzz. Maybe you can sell him high, add maybe the 108 plus DJ Moore to see if you can get a needle mover. And Devontae Smith is the other one. Those are the two that I think you can most likely upgrade off of. Maybe you have to add Ferguson in that deal to get it over the top. I don't know. Somebody needs a tight end, etc. Regardless, though, the main nucleus of that deal would be one of those receivers plus maybe the 108, 208 to see if you can kind of tier up. Maybe that gets you close to like a Brian Thomas Jr. But I mean, aside from that, I mean, I'm looking at the structure of this team. I'm not tearing up from Drake May because, quite simply, I don't think you're going to get the market value that I think Drake May should deserve. Like Drake May for me is a clear-cut mid-first round startup pick. And I don't think people on the market have adjusted to that yet. In fact, when we actually did our recent Dynasty Startup Mock live stream, the most commented thing was, wow, Danny took Drake May. I think it was like 107. Yeah, that's where I think he should be valued. So if your league mates aren't going to be valuing him there, there's no sense for me to tier up because, quite simply, you're either going to have to overpay to do it to get a true stud, or you're going to take either a lateral or maybe even a downgrade in my eyes. So Drake May, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, perfectly constructed quarterback core. Obviously, the wide receivers at top there. You have 3 of the top 6 or 7 dynasty wide receivers, along with another top 10 guy with Ladd McConkey. So Devontae Smith and DJ Moore are the expendable guys on this team. On top of that, I mean, adding 101 to that group, having Saquon Barkley, Ashton Genty, sure, maybe you can use an RB3 because it is a 10-team team. You want some firepower, but aside from maybe having a strong RB3 projection, I think this team is in a good path. On top of that, I mean, some of the moves you made, I think are absolutely fantastic. First one, CJ Stroud, Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake May, 101. I think you upgrade both assets.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Drake May over CJ Stroud, especially given the, rushing that Drake May brings to the table, even if you think, okay, CJ Stroud's going to bounce back and he's going to be back up to where he's supposed to be, which I tend to think on CJ Stroud. I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I don't think he's
Drake May runs. That's the difference. And then 101 versus Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, in most startups, I will bet good money that Genty goes ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr., especially if he gets, a Cowboys landing spot or one of these Broncos landing spots or one of these places.
Bears.
Yeah, Bears, Raiders, one of those places, if he goes there, I mean, he's going to be valued higher than Marvin Harrison Jr. So again, it's at the very least a wash. If not, we prefer both assets in the deal. He also did mention too, like, should he add something to like the 108 for Bucky Irving or another usable running back? So let me just say first, not now. If you are going to do this, you should either wait until the rookie draft is taking place or close to the rookie draft so people have an understanding of how valuable the 108 is, so on and so forth. And you'll also have a better idea then, too, of like what happened in free agency, what happened in the draft. Like, what if Bucky Irving gets a running back added in the backfield? Like, that would throw a huge kind of wrench into everything. We also have no idea who his offensive coordinator is as of right now, too. So I would wait if you're going to go get a third hammer running back, because he mentions this league is like 4 to 5 monsters and a bunch of bums. I would wait until you have more information to do something like that. And the same applies for receiver too. If you're like, oh, somebody's willing to give me, Jamar Chase for like Ladd McConkey 108 plus another piece or something, you could definitely do something like that. You want to go get another hammer at wide receiver by upgrading with Smith, DJ Moore, McConkey or something like that and some picks. Like, by all means, you could do that, but there's no rush. I mean, this team is in great shape right now.
Yeah. And that's basically the thing we always stress is, obviously, again, we don't blame you guys. You think fantasy football, you think Dynasty Fantasy Football 24/7. And again, we are like that too. When we are looking at our app and we're looking at our teams, we want to be making moves. But the thing that we've learned, especially from experience, is just the timing of everything. If there's a move that you know you can make at a time where you're going to have more leverage, make it then. There's no use in making a move of the 108 for Bucky Irving, because all that can happen to Bucky Irving's value up until the rookie draft is negative. All that can happen to the rookie pick that you have, plus maybe the asset that you'd have to add on top of 108 for Bucky Irving, can only be positive, because as we know, rookie picks gain value as the NFL draft happens. Typically, especially in the first round. I mean, we already kind of know where the prospect profiles are on a lot of these guys, but once those pen to paper on those landing spots, rookie fever happens, you're going to see at least a 1.1, 1.2x increase in market value.
90% of your league mates aren't even paying attention right now. Like realistically, they have January 25th. They don't even know who the hell 108 is going to be in most casual leagues. I mean, diehards, they're going to be a little bit more plugged in, but even in diehard leagues that you and I play in with like our active listeners and whatnot, like the 108 in January 25th is going to be less valuable than the 108 on March 1st, or April 1st or May 1st or whatever. Like the more information you got, use it. Ask yourself the question, do I need to make this move now? That's the question you need to ask yourself. For some of this stuff. But yeah, the other trade that he ended up making was early on in the season. He traded away Caleb Williams, an early projected 26 first and the 205. And he sold the farm. He's like, I'm going to get Josh Allen, which to me, I'm totally fine with this move.
Yeah, for sure. I think your team is ready to contend. Obviously, you're adding the quarterback one projection going into next year, in my opinion. Again, you can make the argument that Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. For me, it's still going to be Josh Allen as long as he's a Buffalo Bill, because we saw this year, even with decreased overall receiving talent, his equity on the goal line, his equity as a pure passer extending plays. Can you imagine if Keon Coleman also took a next step? Like, we could be talking about this guy getting back to that 35 to 38 passing touchdown range. Like, the guy was a 23, 24 point per game scorer on 28 passing touchdowns, which is a low year for fucking Josh Allen. So like, Josh Allen is he's the biggest cheat code in fantasy.
He's a beast, man. He's a beast. Yeah. He's if Jalen Hurts was way better at throwing the football. That's what he is. And who knows? Maybe Jaden Daniels will join him as a guy that's just a cheat code because he's a better passer already than Jalen Hurts is, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. So overall, obviously your team's in a great spot. You do mention there's a couple contender teams, monster teams in this league. Your team is right up there with them in terms of the rookie picks. Again, too early to say exactly at the 108 and 208. 101, obviously you're adding Ashton Genty to this team. No ifs, ands, or buts. Somebody could be offering me 3 first-round picks. In a 10-team start 10 league, given the status of your team, you're taking Ashton Genty over that package. 108, again, maybe you want to add another running back at that spot, whether it's Omarion Hampton, Caleb Johnson, maybe Quinshon Judkins gets a good spot. There's a lot of running backs that are worthwhile to be taking at that 108. Just kind of pick and choose, end up what happening in that what ends up happening in the NFL draft. And then on top of that, I mean, the 208, it's a crapshoot. We're still in a prospect profile evaluation at this point. We don't know draft capital. Just it's good that you have that second rounder.
Yeah, and again, maybe the best outcome or the best path that you take is spending the 108 and 208 on rookie running backs or rookie running back and a wide receiver or whatever. But given the status of your team, those picks, I would definitely say come May, I might be willing to move those to tier up or move those straight up for an asset or whatever. Like I said, if somebody wants DJ Moore in the 108 for, Puka Nacua or something like that, then you're obviously going to make moves like that when you can. We can move on to the next team, though, here from Josh Slatz. 12-team, half PPR, half tight end premium, super flex league, 12-team start 9. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson as the top quarterbacks. I mean, as elite as it gets, production-wise between those two guys. Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Ramondre Stevenson, Tyler Algier, so on and so forth there. Justin Jefferson, Marvin Harrison, Puka Nacua, T. Higgins at wide receiver. A little bit weak there depth-wise, but very good top 4 guys. And then George Kittle, Tucker Kraft, and so on at the tight end position. The only real weakness with this team is that you have aging running backs, so you're kind of pigeonholed into competing right now, and you're kind of lacking a little bit of depth both at running back and wide receiver, I would say. But you do have the 103 this year, which is great because you're probably going to be looking at, potentially RB2 in this class, or maybe a Luther Burden or an Emeka Egbuka, depending on like kind of landing spots. Maybe you have an opportunity to draft a quarterback or trade that pick away if you don't want to draft said quarterback.
No need to draft a quarterback with Allen and Jackson. So
no, exactly. And not only that, but like, I think come May, when we actually know landing spots and draft capital, I will imagine that 103, just because Cam Ward goes first overall or whatever, it still might not be Cam Ward who's 103. You know what I mean? Like the running backs and wide receivers are just clearly better prospects objectively.
Yeah. Yeah, your main move with this team for me, because again, you mentioned too, you made the move now for like the Pittman move. We'll get into some of the micro trades specifically, but I mean, your main move here, 103 plus whatever it costs, go get a hammer running back straight up. Go get one of the fucking Gibbs, go get one of the Bijan Robinsons, go get one of the Yash and Genties. Again, like obviously it is unfortunate you don't have your 26 or 27 one, but if it costs 103 plus one of your receivers, or like actually, I mean, it's kind of tough because you have Jefferson, Harrison, and Higgins.
I would be way more likely, I think, too,
Stevenson,
to go after one of the veteran running backs versus Genty, because like you have to win next year. Basically, you're like you have to win. Like get the best possible projection you can get.
Would you deal 103 for Barkley?
I would if you had to.
Yeah.
I would if you had to, because realistically, let's say
maybe you can get another contending piece with that.
Yeah, let's say you go 103 and that gets you can buy low on Breece Hall because Breece Hall had a bad year this year. You could get Breece Hall and maybe even a wide receiver thrown in on top of it. Someone will give you like Keenan Allen or some contending wide receiver that helps your depth out a little bit. You don't win this year, you're fucked, because you're going to have to tear this thing down a year from now, because Kamara, Mixon, those guys, they're probably not going to be starting running backs for fantasy after that.
I mean, I will say the fact that you do have 5 foundational pieces to build around. So like when you do eventually tear it down, having Allen, Jackson, Jefferson, Harrison, and Nakua, Higgins as well. Actually, I'd classify around that range. Again, he's not technically on those guys' level, but at the same time, you're getting about a 25, 26-year-old wide receiver who's shown legit wide receiver one upside. And it does sound like at this point, he's going to be staying in Cincinnati, which I do think is the best beneficial path for his value. So regardless of the fact that you have young assets to be able to get you into the next cycle. Like Corey said, obviously you do have to position yourself to win this year, but it's not like you're completely left bare if you don't win this year, which is nice.
Yeah, well, so it's also worth noting, one of the questions he has here is, should he tear it down now and not compete? Because he won the championship this year. So he could.
I'd run it back. That's tear it down.
If you can, it's all going to depend what you can get from Mixon and Kamara. Because as I talked about a couple days back, the running back aging market is not what it was 3-4 years ago. A couple years ago, you get a season like Kamara had this year, a season like Mixon had this year, you're selling them for like a first and a second. Like people didn't care about age at the running back position back then, but people kind of now value them appropriately, to the point that even if they're great projections next year, again, Kamara and Mixon, you might still get kind of lowballed because they're aging running backs and people understand the market is not what it used to be on the running back position. Plus, we're getting a huge influx of great running backs in this year's class and whatnot too. So again, gauge the market on those aging running backs. I think it would be malpractice if we didn't tell you that first, because you could 1 year punt this and get a bunch of picks and maybe get a bunch of 1s and 2s in this year's class because your league market just loves those guys. Then that's one thing.
Yeah, obviously your league market depends, but judging from some of these deals, it doesn't really sound like that is the case. Now, I mean, we'll talk about the Mixon deal in a second, because maybe that could point to like if you can contend for 1 more year and then get that potential deal, maybe not that potential deal, but maybe like a 2nd round pick. That's probably the direction I would go. The reason why I would also position myself to compete another year is, while you don't have your first in 2027, you still have your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. You basically don't have any picks in 2026. So there's really no point on tearing it down now, knowing that you have none of your picks when you have a team that can very well go back to back.
Yeah, that's a good point. I should have definitely factored that in before I even mentioned it. The trades, you kind of alluded to some of them right here. He traded absolutely insanely good move here. On June 28th of last year, he traded Pittman, Michael Wilson, a 2nd and a 4th for, first of all, Kamara alone was enough to make this trade, especially knowing that you won the championship due in part to Kamara's production. Yeah. And you also got a 103, a projected early first, which ended up being 103. So smash deal there. Absolutely no commentary really necessary. The other trade he made May 4th, on this league as well. Yeah. Bo Nix, the 112, 26 first, 27 first. I'm assuming those are his own picks. And that was basically the price to pay to go up and get Lamar Jackson. Now, it's unfortunate for you that Bo Nix ended up kind of hitting in the NFL and he gained a lot of value. But honestly, I would still probably do this knowing what Lamar Jackson is worth. Maybe not 3 1s, maybe more like 112 plus a 26 first in Bo Nix is probably about fair market value. But given that Bo Nix was a hit as a rookie, you probably paid a little bit too much. But overall, fine move.
Like in an ideal world, obviously you're able to make that move with a different asset instead of your 27-1. But honestly, I mean, I'm cool making that. Like even if we equate, let's just say Bo Nix is worth 2 mid projected ones at this point, given the fact that he's a starting quarterback, he looked good as a rookie. We'll just say that the 2025 and 2026 ones that you gave up, we already know the 2025 is going to be the 112. we're factoring, again, whether it's the 112 or not in 2026, given this team, it should be about the 109 to 112 at the very minimum. Like,
Right.
even if you lost in the semifinal, I don't expect your team to be like, oh, I'm the 6th seed and I barely snuck in, or, oh, I missed the playoffs completely. Like, no, your team should make the playoffs. Your team should be a top 4 seed. So I'll give you a 109 to 112. If you told me it was 5 ones for Lamar Jackson with 3 of them being in the 110 to 112 range,
It's fair.
I'm fine giving that up.
Yeah, no, definitely makes sense there. And then you mentioned the Mixon deal during the season. Again, it obviously worked out for you because you won the championship. But he sold a projected late 26 first, probably his own or maybe some other contenders projected late first. Ended up getting Joe Mixon for that. Given the production Joe Mixon was giving you on October 26th, which was top 5 running back production, I think this was a fine move, to be honest. As much as it sucks now looking at the fact that you sold a first for a 27-year-old running back.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously that factor, but I will say the fact that this wasn't a 2025 one, it ended up being a 26 one. Again, who knows? We don't know enough on the class in 2026 to claim it, whether it's definitely going to be bad or it's definitely going to be good. But judging from the early signs, it does seem like 2026 kind of feels like the ugly sister year, where it's like, hey, you got 2025, you got 2027. We know that those classes respectively are filled with studs. 2026 is like, there's no real established talent at this point.
It's like how we thought of the 2022 class a couple of years back, where we knew 2021 had like the top running backs and the quarterbacks and so on and forth. And then in 23, we were looking at forward to Bijan and Gibbs and those guys. And 2022 kind of got the shit end of the stick. Ended up being a good receiver class, obviously, because we had a lot of good guys, kind of break out or whatever. But we weren't excited about 2022 picks at the time. And it's kind of what looks like 26 is going to be.
I'll point one thing. So like you said, 2022, 2026. Those are the clear 2 worst classes based off projection in the 2020 decade thus far. Obviously, we haven't seen what the 2028 eligible guys have looked like so far, but from the 2020 to 2027 range, 2026 and 2022 are the clear worst classes.
Yeah, because we got, obviously, 23 was disappointing, but we still got a bunch of high-end guys. 24, I mean, we already saw what they just did. And 2020, I would say, was disappointing relative to expectations. But if you go back to those prospect profiles, that class could have been really, really good. And it still was, to be honest. But like the running back specifically disappointed quite a bit.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like Jonathan Taylor hit, but aside from that, I mean, you're looking at, to be fair though, if you just drafted quarterbacks, you're probably in a good fucking spot.
Oh yeah, you probably smashed. If you drafted wide receivers and quarterbacks in 2020, you did great. But if many people, leave it in the comments down below, because I know somebody did this. Somebody took Cam Akers over CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson or
100%.
Joe Burrow or something. Like, I guarantee somebody did it.
Yeah, for sure. So, let's not start with some of those running backs over those receivers. That's kind of that's just,
I took Henry Ruggs over Justin Jefferson. We've all been there. Like, it's bad. Like, we've all done stupid shit, and that was one of the stupidest things I ever did. So
I took David Bell over like a strong wide receiver running back a couple years ago in a year. I took David Bell over Pickens in a league.
Yeah, I didn't actually have to make that decision, thankfully, but I would have had I had to make that decision.
Yeah. We're just kind of rambling on about some micro mistakes, but overall, I mean, looking at that 2026 class, you probably don't have to make that choice considering you already made the deal.
Yeah. And a couple other questions that Josh just has here, and then we can move on to the next team. He says, should I try and tier up to 101 using 103? Again, we kind of already mentioned that. Yes, we definitely consider doing that. And he said the manager in the 102 this year is offering me the 110 and his 26 first for the 103. No. That's not enough to move off of that pick. Definitely not. Yeah. And then pretty much everything else, I think we've already kind of covered with this team, so we can probably move on.
Yeah, 100%. We can move on to the next team here. That's going to be from Daniel Krauss here. He does also have an addition to it that he DM'd me, so I'll talk about that in a second. But as we see on the screen, Jane Daniels, Drake May, Justin Herbert, you're set at quarterback. Let's just say that for free. Ray Davis, Cam Akers, and Keaton Mitchell, the classic house money running back core where you don't have any running backs. Wide receivers, amen. London, McConkey, Dunze, Leggett, Coker. Looking like a lot of young wide receiver talent on this team. Cade Otton, Brent Strange. Definitely don't have a high-end tight end, but for the most part, Cade Otton definitely gave you that type of production, although maybe given the structure of this team, you probably didn't want as much of that production this past year. However, though, when you're looking at the picks, 102, 108, 202, 206, 209, 212, along with all of your first 2026, along with including a 2026 mid-projected second, as well as, I guess you already got proactive getting some 2027 picks because you did end up acquiring 2 extra seconds in that class. So he mentions that he missed out on the 101 by 1 spot due to max points 4. That is very pain. Our league is transitioning from 0.5 PPR or half PPR. Sorry, I don't know why I said 0.5. Half PPR to full PPR, and from a full point PPR tight end premium to a 1.5. So keep this in mind. So seemingly having the 102 pick isn't as bad right now. Emergence of London Lad may really help turn my team around from a dumpster fire into a solid shell, but I still think I have a lot of work to do. Try chopping the 102, but I haven't been able to get a good deal. Should I trade back or stick and pick? Also feel like I should move one of my quarterbacks. Any ideas on who I should target, whether it's players or picks? Sell Jaden at ceiling, especially if Washington lands a nice wide receiver this offseason. And he also adds that he ended up making a last-minute trade, I believe, or he got a last-minute trade offer. Sorry, correction. He wants Roma Dunze in exchange for Keon Coleman, Isaac Correndo, and the 311. Would love to hear your thoughts. First and foremost, that last deal offer, I'm keeping Roma Dunze, especially with Ben Johnson now in town. Like Roma Dunze, I understand he was not as impressive relative to expectations. Like he didn't have the year that I thought he would. Again, I was taking him in round 6, round 7 of best ball. I thought he could potentially be the productive rookie wide receiver that we've kind of seen these last couple of years. I mean, we saw from Lab McConkey this past year in particular, but at the same time, it's kind of overstated that he struggled this year, because 750 yards and 5 touchdowns, I believe, what he scored. Again, not what the expectations that we had were, but nothing that will say, oh, yeah, this guy's going to be a bust in the NFL. I really do think Roma Dunze is the prospect that we saw in the prospect profile, a guy that I had graded as a top 10 level prospect. I think he's going to have a big time breakout year this upcoming year with Ben Johnson, especially if Keenan Allen walks in free agency.
Yeah, it's Odunze. Whatever you think of Caleb Williams' rookie season is also applicable to Roma Odunze. It's like, yeah, there were moments, like we saw some of it, but like it wasn't always there, and it was just Chicago was a fucking dumpster fire. That was basically what happened in that situation. It's also quick, tiny little side tangent to me. Missing out on 101 this year for the 102 feels worse than any year I can remember.
Absolutely. I actually saw this tweet. I believe it was from Paul Patterson. He's like, is this the worst year to have the 102 that we've ever seen? Like,
yeah,
we know.
That's why I brought it up, because I saw the tweet as well. It's like, dude, Ted McMillan, great receiver prospect. He's not Jamar Chase or like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's some great receiver. He's a good receiver prospect. He's probably a top 25 talent. He's a Drake London, Roma Odunze caliber wide receiver prospect, but he is not, CeeDee Lamb or Marvin Harrison or Jamar Chase or even Malik Neighbors or any of those type of guys. Yeah. So yeah, missing out on Genty hurts a lot this year. If we had Jalen Milroe go first overall, obviously that would ease the blow a little bit. You get a rushing quarterback 102, but the situation we have with Ted McMillan, at least being the consensus 102 right now, is definitely a big pain if you miss the 101.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned here, like, what move should I make? First and foremost, you mentioned, should I trade one of my quarterbacks? Obviously Drake May is going to be the keep out of those 3. Yeah. Which one would you sell? Because I would sell Herbert on face value. Now, what if you say, what if somebody said, yeah, I'll offer you 101 plus 2 first round picks for Jade Daniels?
So the reason it's Herbert is twofold. Number one, technically you could make the argument Jaden Daniels is currently at his ceiling right now. So I think that's why some people might be like,
that's why I gave you the question
for Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden Daniels might be the type of dynasty asset that you never want to give up. Like he might just be that, like he's that good of a passer and he runs like crazy. Like don't sell Jaden Daniels, in my opinion. Justin Herbert, on the other hand, is way older than Jaden Daniels. Well, not way older, a couple years older than Jaden Daniels. And you have a rebuilding team. And also Justin Herbert will be drafted 3rd in redraft of these 3 quarterbacks, most likely, depending on what the Patriots do. So for me, I would sell Herbert and look for, JJ McCarthy plus a pick if you want another 3rd quarterback, or if you want to go,
I would tear up with Herbert.
Quarterback.
I would tear up. Like I said, again, I agree with your assumption, because like Jaden Daniels, Drake May, like you have the potential to break your league from a fantasy point scoring output standpoint. Like if Drake May takes the level of steps that I think we both think he can take, he could be very comfortably a 21 plus point per game quarterback. I mean, fuck, he was averaging 18.5 points per game this year with me, you, fucking Maria, fucking we had nothing of substance in that Patriots receiving core, and Drake May turned water into wine. So I do think that you have the opportunity to have 2 quarterbacks that are giving you 45 points per game on a weekly basis, which is the single most valuable thing that you can have in Dynasty. And as much as I love Justin Herbert, again, I think he's a real life top 5, top 6 level quarterback. At the same time, though, he is the oldest of this group, like you said. He is on the offense that long term, I have question marks in terms of the overall passing volume. Because, I mean, we did see this year, they kind of exploded in the second half of the year. But at the same time, we've also seen tendencies that when the offense isn't exactly moving at an efficient rate, they have leaned on that run game, especially when J.K. Dobbins was healthy. So I am curious to see what that split's going to look like. On top of that, I mean, again, he's an efficient quarterback. He's a great real-life quarterback. But what exactly is the fantasy ceiling comparatively to May and Daniels? I don't think it's on that level. So if you can get Herbert, and again, I don't think you can probably trade Herbert for Genty straight up in this type of deal. But I would be curious to see what the value difference would be between those two.
Yeah, going after a wide receiver of similar value to Herbert, maybe Herbert gets you Garrett Wilson plus a 27-1 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you could maybe sell him off for something like that package. If you wanted to still have a good third quarterback, you could always tier down to a young option like a Bryce Young or a Michael Penix or a JJ McCarthy and then get some oomph on top of it for trading down from Justin Herbert. But honestly, I mean, you'd probably just be better off selling him for pick capital or, wide receiver production or maybe running like really, really young running back production like a Genty or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense to sell him is I guess the answer to your question. I would not sell May because I think the market values him lower than we do. And I would not sell Daniels because I just think he might legit be the type of asset you never want to sell.
Yeah. The way I would attack this though is again, as much as I love Ted McMillan, the 102 is the dangling asset. Like I want to try to tier up and get a difference maker. Like, can that get you, like I said, like whether it's Herbert to Ashton Genty or 102 to Ashton Genty, that would be a pathway that I would look at. But I think the 102 asset, again, as much as I love Ted McMillan, you have a lot of depth in your wide receiver core right now. And especially, again, you have the headlines there of Drake London, Ladd McConkey, legit wide receiver ones in my dynasty rankings. But you don't have that Puka Nacua or you don't have that CeeDee Lamb. Like if you had one of those guys and everybody was kind of pushed down a peg, you would have an absolutely loaded wide receiver core, and you'd just be saying, okay, 108, Amarian Hampton, 202, and maybe Trevion Henderson falls there, boom. 206, Cam's got to go. You'd be in an opportunity where you could just pound all of those late first, early second type of capital in this class on just establishing that running back core.
Yeah, and then probably taking a swing on a tight end as well, given the strength of the class there. But yeah, I mean, looking at the team, again, you also have some trades. You sent away Jonnu Smith, Drew Lock, and a 26th fourth in November. You got a second. I mean, that's a great move. You just sold the production that Jonnu was giving up, and Lock was, I guess, a starting quarterback at the time. Going back actually to June, you sold Elijah Moore, Ken Walker, and Tank Dell. You got Ladd McConkey, the 206 and the 212. I mean, McConkey's worth more than all those guys combined now, so that was a smash trade. And then Geno Smith in a fourth, you sold beginning of the season. He was a starting quarterback. You got Wandale and 2-2s. I think that's definitely all good moves there. So, I mean, you clearly know the process. You know what you're doing here. Don't be afraid to, go into 2025 with like a house money. You got like the nice thing is you got a bunch of picks to add running backs in this year's class and probably a tight end as well. And you should be ready to go. But if you can get a good Herbert package, that would be the kind of icing on top of this team.
Yeah, this is a clear house money situation after this draft, in my opinion. Again, like see if you can make a couple consolidation moves because I do think the depth is there. But if you approach this draft the right way, and again, I'm sure you're probably going to have follow-ups on this team. I'm sure you're probably going to have some micro questions after the NFL draft. I think you can really turn this team into a monster, especially given the fact that you already figured out your quarterback situation. You have that amount of pick capital.
Yeah, and like you're one stud receiver away from your receiver core pretty much being figured out as well. And if you bumped every tight end down a peg and added a better tight end, K-Dot and JT Sanders are perfect tight end 2 and 3, right? Like you add Harold Fannin or Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren to this team, you're ready to go at tight end as well. So we could probably move on to the next team here.
Shut up, Brennan Strange.
Yes, Brenton Strange sucks. So we don't even mention him on this channel anymore. Next team we got here from JohnnyB, 12-team half PPR, 4-point per passing touchdown, super flex league. A lot of Drake May talk today. Drake May, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young is the quarterbacks.
It's young. An FSE.
It is a Drake. I mean, you guys are going to have a lot of Drake May after what we were saying about him last offseason for rookie drafts. Jahmyr Gibbs, Trey Benson is the main running backs there. Marvin, Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, Rome Odunze. It looks like he just had 1 million picks last year. Tucker Kraft and Dallas Goedert, Ben Sinnott as the main tight ends. It looks like he still has 104, 106, 205 this year. So, I mean, you're presumably adding a couple good wide receiver prospects, maybe a running back or two with a lot of those first 3 picks. And then it looks like he's got all of his future assets as well. Johnny says he's in a predicament with his squad and wanted to hear our take aside from obvious running back weaknesses. He said he's giving some trade details here. So he said, in hindsight, the JSN trade was terrible. So let's look at the JSN trade here. He's got JSN, Hunter Henry, Rico Dowdle, and 208. He sold that off for the 106. Now, JSN on October 22nd was not JSN now.
No. No, and I think that's the thing. I think it was a good process move to say, you know what? That pick was the 106. So you probably were thinking, okay, this guy's probably on the fringe of maybe making it, probably not making the playoffs. Could have potentially worked up from the 103 to the 106 range. So you're like, okay, I'm getting a receiver that, well, he doesn't look like a bust per se. Definitely doesn't look like the wide receiver that he was hyped up to be. Obviously, in hindsight now, he ended up exploding at the second half of the year, so he missed out on some value there. But as bad as it looks with hindsight, and again, I don't think it looks terrible with hindsight because, again, although I prefer JSN comfortably over the 106, you get an Amari and Hampton there. Yeah, sure, it hurts that you lost 208. It hurts that you lost Rico Dowdle, Hunter Henry. Who the fuck cares? I mean, he's what, the most valuable tight end on your team. Like, it really doesn't matter. Yeah, like you hit on Amari and Hampton, and he turns into RB1. Again, you lost a little bit of value, but at the same time, I still think that it was a right move to make at the time. However, when you combine that deal with the one you made 5/30/2024, May 30th, 2024, just think of it like that, because that'll help you sleep at night.
Yeah, the 107, the 201, and Kyle Pitts and Jalen Wright, who are worth not a whole lot at this point.
Who does?
Jahmyr Gibbs, especially as he closed the season, man, he's getting pretty untouchable as far as dynasty running backs go. Yeah. So definitely a great move for you there. And again, like, you add, let's say hypothetically, 104 and 106. You grab RB2 in this class, or RB, let's say you take Hampton and Judkins at 104 and 106. And at 205, you take a swing on, Ollie Gordon or something like that. Like, your running back core is ready to go, man. And your wide receiver core going to start to come into their own. Your quarterback's going to start to come into their own. This is the type of team where, like, we always talk about, align your winning window with when your running back's winning window are. Like, your whole team is growing up together the second you add a couple rookie running backs to this team. And that's, I mean, obviously it's a little risky because if a couple guys miss and whatnot.
Quarterbacks too.
Yeah, but like, if they grow up together and they're all, or most of them are hits, like, that, it becomes a fucking seeker of a monster very fast.
Dude, like, you literally just have all of the 2023 to 2025 class.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, mainly 2024's class, which is a great class to have. I mean, it looks like you had like the 101, 102, 106, 108, and 110 last year.
Did you just have like a blank Dynasty Decisions team like before the 2023 class? Like, it was just no players, all picks, kind of like my Mickey Mouse League team.
Pretty much, yeah. That's what it looks like. But I mean, we don't really need to say much here to Johnny other than your team is in great shape, man. Just spend your picks. Again, always do your due diligence with those selections. Maybe you can go up from 104 to 101 and it doesn't cost you a super crazy shit ton amount of picks to go up and get Genty. But for the most part, I mean, you're going to be at 104 and 106. It's going to be the honeypot for, the top 3 to 4 receivers in this class, the top 3 to 4 running backs in this class, which I assume, I mean, there's more of a tier than the top 3 to 4 running backs, but just given law of averages, I imagine landing spot and draft capital dictates that 3 to 5 of the top running backs in this class are head and shoulders above the other ones, even if it's not from a talent perspective, because, we're not going to get second round draft capital from 8 running backs. You know what I mean? Like, we're probably going to get only a couple of these guys going pretty high in the NFL draft. And that's where you're going to be sitting in, man, 104 to 106. So you're like, you walk away with Luther Burden and fucking Amari and Hampton, you're going to feel really good.
And I will say one thing too. I know it's not much, but having a couple 4s in this class, and if you guys out there do have 3s, if you thought last year was fun, sniping guys like Bucky Irving and Tyrone Tracy, all those guys in the rounds 3-4 range of your rookie drafts, dude, I'm 10 running backs in this year, and I haven't watched a single bad one.
No, literally. And I tweeted out today the FSC prospect model, which you can also get on flockfantasy.com. I will upload the 2025 prospects into that very, very soon. By the time you guys are watching this, it should be coming out early next week, I would say. But the class in 2025 has 1 workhorse profile, 5 RB1 upside profiles, 5 RB2 upside profiles, 9 flex play profiles. So we're talking 20 running backs who are at least as good of prospects as Bucky Irving was last year. like we're talking about a lot of backs that could be really good. And a workhorse, I mean, we're talking Genty's the workhorse, spoiler alert, and he's a stud. And, the 5 RB1, 5 RB2 upside profiles, generally players like that get drafted in the top 100, top 75 picks of the NFL draft.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun. If you the way I describe it is, if you stocked up on 2025 picks when we were saying to a while back, you're having some fun, because I feel like people kind of downplayed how good this class would be.
They very much did.
Even going into 2024, like, dude, we firsthand heard people call Ashton Genty Ray Davis athleticism. We'll just say that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
people said that to us. And not only that too, but like we thought the 2024 running back class was going to be so good. And then most of the names we were talking about went back to school and are now in this class. Like,
yeah.
we
Like, dude,
thought Travion Henderson and Raheem Sanders and all these guys were going to be in 2024, and they are in this class.
well, what's crazy about that is I still remember going into the 2023 rookie draft cycle. I made a video called "Acquire These 2024 Rookie Picks Now," and obviously, it worked out anyways because I like to talk about Caleb Williams, Brock Bowers, guys like that, Marvin Harrison Jr., guys like that on that video. But like Travion Henderson at that point, everybody was saying, including media members, prospect profile wise, okay, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's got a Bijan Robinson level trajectory. Now, obviously, he hasn't lived up to that type of expectation, but for a guy with all the talent in the world, former 5-star recruit, guy that's going to go on day 2 to probably be the RB 4 to 6 in a lot of your drafts, it's going to be a fun class.
Oh, absolutely. So let's get to the last team of the video we got from AStrout. Here, he said he missed the playoffs with his team. So you got a 12-team half PPR, super flex, Drake May, Caleb Williams. Also, a million times we've seen these two quarterbacks paired together. Isaiah Pacheco, Tyrone Tracy, and a bunch of others at running back there. Marvin Harrison, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Lad McConkey, Romo Dunze, and others at wide receiver. You got a bunch, top 14 dynasty or top 20 dynasty receivers. You got 5 of them. And then TJ Hawkinson is your main tight end with the 104, 106, 211 in this year's class, and then all of your future picks. So he earned the 104 this year. Like he said, he missed the playoffs. He said the roster's in a decent spot overall, but not completely sure where to go next. He said he's been trying to move off of Tyrone Tracy before the draft in case he gets replaced, I'm assuming is what he's talking about, but otherwise not trying to do too much. He said, I might look to sell Kupp if the price is right, but seems unlikely. I mean, Kupp right now is just such a mystery where he's going to play, if he's going to be a Ram, if he's going to play somewhere else. You're not going to be able to sell him for a good value right now. You should probably wait until whatever happens with him. And then he said, any guidance on what happens or on what moves to make and a general goal for the rookie draft would be appreciated. So, I mean, looking at your team, objectively, you have a shell for 2 great young quarterbacks, a bunch of great young wide receivers, and a good young tight end or a tight end who's in his prime at the very least. You need to add running backs to this team. That's great. The 104 and 106 and 211 are going to be good running back picks in this year's class. So as far as what I would do with this team, you could reasonably just kind of spend your rookie picks, maybe move off of cut some fat from this roster like Cooper Kupp and, whatever, and be kind of ready to move into a house money window as soon as next year.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the way you've positioned this team, having the young assets at wide receiver, again, the one that kind of is the elephant in the room, like you mentioned, was Cooper Kupp. But I mean, aside from that, I think you put yourself in a really good spot. You do have a couple picks this year. Again, very, very strong running back class. Good year to potentially add some running backs to this team. Again, Isaiah Pacheco, we still have faith for, but obviously not the type of year that we want to see coming off of that fibula injury. Again, he wasn't efficient when he came back, but we kind of cited that maybe that would be the case. Hence, a Tony Pollard coming off of that same type of fibula break that he suffered with the Cowboys. He could potentially have a big time bounce back going into 2025. Tyrone Tracy, assuming that they don't add a high end, high top 3 round, top 2 round type of running back pick, he should be able to be a workhorse running back there in New York. And again, maybe Estime or Javonte Williams for that matter ends up getting more work. Although I do think that the Broncos will probably draft a running back at the same time.
Javonte's a free agent anyway, so he's probably not even going to be on the Broncos.
Yeah, no, he's going to be gone then. And regardless, I did like Estime, but they might nuke him with a running back, which is unfortunate. But regardless, I think you put yourself in a good spot. You do have all of your picks in 26 and 27 as well. And you do have that 211, which, like we said, if you want to add depth running back, the 211, the 209, the 208, the 303 this year is going to be your best friend.
Yeah, I think the thing first of all, you're already kind of thinking the right way, in my opinion. Your first thought was maybe I should shop Tracy. To me, that's the right call. Yep. The first evaluation you should have is, okay, my running back core is not ready to compete right now. Presumably, I'm going to add 2 really solid running back prospects to this draft. Everyone in your running back core may have a sell high window this offseason, including Pacheco maybe survives the draft. Maybe you can sell high on him. Tracy, potentially you want to sell high on him now before he has to worry about anybody coming in the draft. Estime might have a period of time where people think he's going to be the starting running back for Denver next year after free agency if they don't sign somebody, but they could nuke him in the draft, like you said already too. Garendo, maybe they cut bait or something. You know what whatever we're talking about here, there's going to be a selling window for each one of these running backs potentially, and also potentially for Cooper Kupp in free agency before the draft or after the draft. Definitely work the market, but that's pretty much all you can do with this team, because if, let's say, you run pure and Pacheco's going to start in Kansas City next year, Tracy's going to start in New York next year, and you add Judkins and Hampton to this team, you're ready to be a house money team.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, he did have a trade here. My apologies, I forgot to get into the file, but just for context, we'll just talk about it. He did actually send Garendo for the 211 that he got. So I think that's an excellent move. As much as I do like Isaac Garendo, it does seem like a tougher path for him to potentially be a needle-moving asset next year in particular. While McCaffrey is dealing with his injury issues, we assume that he's going to be back going into next year. And I mean, Jordan Mason was very, very productive prior to that, prior to his injury, prior to his shoulder issues. So if you're telling me right now I get to re-roll, as much as I like Garendo, I think he's a talented back. I think long-term he might have some more upside than the 211 pick. But at the same time, if 211 gets you a productive piece that you can put into your lineup in year one, I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, so I guess he doesn't have both Garendo and the 211. He has just the 211 now.
Correct.
Even Garendo is still listed here. Okay.
Yeah,
so anyways, I mean, this is a good team. I think you kind of already know what to do. It sounds like your head's at the right place. So I don't really think we need to spend too much more time here other than just kind of take advantage of your buy sell windows if you can. And that's pretty much all I would do going forward.
Yeah, 100%. Keep doing what you're doing. Obviously, you have good process. You labeled the moves in a correct way, and like we said, you're kind of positioning yourself to fulfill that goal. But like Corey said, we will be wrapping up this video. Hopefully, you guys got a ton of value, and I'll let you do the plugs.
Yeah. So again, if you guys want, if you were like, holy shit, I wish my team could get broken down like this. Well, you can have your team broken down like this as well. One of two ways, actually. If you sign up on Flock Fantasy, use the promo code FSE and sign up for an annual subscription, we can send you, one of us will send you like a full breakdown Dynasty team review. You can also just purchase those a la carte on the site as well, but you get a free one if you sign up for an annual subscription. Using our code. And if you just want to be part of these episodes in the future, and we'll get to you kind of when we can, when you submit them, you can also just use promo code FSE, sign up for a monthly or an annual or whatever, and then submit to the Dynasty Decision submission form down below in the link in the description right now. And you can get your team broken down that way as well. We will have buy, sell, hold reports coming very, very soon. So just be a little bit patient on that. By the end of the month, those should be up and ready to go. And that will also be a free voucher you get when signing up for an annual. So this is, I mean, signing up for an annual is the best bang for your buck. You're going to get two products that are basically worth the amount that the annual subscription costs, and you'll have our Dynasty draft guides when it comes out, our redraft guides when it comes out. You'll have access to the site and all of our rankings and all the other creator stuff for a calendar year, in addition to those vouchers that you'll get for those free services. So definitely the best bang for your buck there. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, comment down below any of your thoughts. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.